Ryan Garcia knocking out Oscar Duarte in the 8th round. There was a bad blood in this fight. Duarte was somebody who was calling out Ryan Garcia saying you ain't nothing. The country doesn't respect you. Mexico doesn't respect you. We call you Queen Ryan, not King Ryan. Shade left, right, and center all throughout the build-up of this fight. And when they finally got into the ring again, Duarte was a competent, strong, dangerous opponent that could have legitimately knocked out Ryan Garcia. And what we saw was a tale of two stories when it comes to Ryan Garcia in this fight. One story is the good story. That story being Ryan Garcia showed a different mentality coming into the ring, showing a new attitude, which is phenomenal. It can work for and against people, but in this case, it seemed like it worked for him. Now he's more so, I understand, I gotta be tough, mentally and physically, and he showed it, which was phenomenal. And in terms of in the ring and boxing, I saw him using his jab more. I saw him aiming to catch Duarte with uppercuts throughout the fight, which was great. I saw him looking to catch openings that Duarte had in his guard, not afraid to throw leather, not afraid to throw power, and all of that power and speed was still there. We didn't see him stray too far away from what got him to the dance, from what worked for him in terms of the success that he's had in his career so far. He didn't overly retool like we've seen other boxers, Anthony Joshua, but we saw him take what has worked and look to try to build upon it to some extent, which I'm happy for. That's one side of the story. The other half of the story, however, is not a good half. It's not a great half. It's not a phenomenal half. It is indeed bad. Very, very bad. Reason being is because there's two things that make the second half of this story, in terms of what we saw Ryan Garcia do in this fight, bad. One, this is a man who, when he did utilize certain tactics, he would then stray away from those tactics. And still isn't able to utilize the size that he has to his advantage in the capacity that it needs to be used. This is a man who, when he did utilize his jab early on, he then strayed away from it later in the fight, and it became less and less apparent that he was able to make that jab something that could work. Now, again, he did use it to frame, he did use it to posture the opponent and set up shots, which I love, but the bad is when he would stray away entirely. In opportunities that he should utilize that more and more, he opted not to. The other bad thing about what we saw with Ryan Garcia was that defense. Oh my gosh. What did we witness when we saw Ryan Garcia trying to get a new frame of mind in terms of being defensively sound? Again, one of the biggest concerns that I've had with Ryan Garcia is the fact that he sticks his chin up. It's the fact that he fights, when he does fight tall, he fights too tall. He fights with terrible defense in mind that can opt for him to get open and get caught multiple times, like we saw against Callum Smith, like we saw against Gervonta Davis, and like we saw against Oscar Duarte. And how did he rectify that? By doing one of the most strange, awkward, and bad Philly shell defenses that I've seen potentially ever. This was a Philly shell that completely turned away from Oscar Duarte. It was so bad. It was horrible. It was terrible. And he still got caught consistently when he would throw up that guard, taking too much unnecessary punishment. Yes, it protected him. I understand. It worked. But it didn't work to the degree that it needs to work, especially, again, for where he's trying to go at 140 pounds. No, this was not good. This looked like something that was made literally in the ring, night of. And this wasn't one of those grandiose, oh my goodness, epiphany moments that was just a genius move like we've seen other boxers do to adapt and overcome. This was a move that was questionable. It was awkward. It was strange. It didn't fit Ryan Garcia in his style. If you follow boxing, we know it's not going to work in the long term. It's not going to work against Teofimo Lopez. It's not going to work against Devin Haney. It's not going to work against the upper echelon of 140. It's just not going to do it. It's not going to be something that will effectively make success breed for Ryan Garcia as his career goes on. If he wants to keep on fighting in this weight class, and if he keeps on moving up, he's a big kid, he could keep on moving up. This ain't it. This ain't it. We've seen unpolished and unrefined Philly shells before. We've seen unpolished and unrefined styles of defense before. But we saw that it fit who was doing it. And it was effective. This was effective, but it was for the wrong reasons. It was because of the fact that somebody hadn't figured out how to get around him completely turning his back from his opponent. In terms of Ryan Garcia turning his back from Oscar Duarte. But when Oscar Duarte did start finding some success, how to actually get around that guard? He was punching through it. He was punching through it. We saw Ryan Garcia get caught, get put in trouble, get trapped in the corner. It was not good. That new style of defense completely puts Ryan Garcia in a absolute shell. There is no way he can actively throw any semblance of offense when he's in that type of defensive Philly shell. It's so turtle-like, not in a good way, in a bad way, where you can't poke your head out at all because there's no real angle to throw anything on your end. You impede their progress, understandable to some degree, but you completely nullify your own. There are so many things that were not great about this return. Despite the chaos, there was some real legitimate progress that was shown. The only problem was it was so overshadowed and minute, but it didn't breed a great performance. Not at all. That's not even mentioning some of the other overwhelming problems that we saw from Ryan Garcia, still not using his straight punches, like his straight right as often as he should, still not being, definitely showing that he can't fight in two distinct styles, not just from the guard and from being on the attack. When I'm talking about moving around the ring, he showed that he couldn't really operate moving and punching. We know he's better on the back foot than on the front foot as a boxer. Countering ability that Ryan Garcia and the potential that he has at his disposal because of his speed and power and that check hook that he's got in his left hand is insane. But despite that, that's with him taking gradual steps and baiting his opponent. But when he needs to move and still operate in some offensive ability, he can't do it. He's not great at it. He showed that he couldn't do it at all. There were times in this fight when Derrick James himself said, make Oscar Duarte move to mitigate his ability to come forward and have effective pressure. Because he can't punch if his feet aren't planted. Great observation by Derrick James. Absolutely. But in trying to implement that game plan, Ryan Garcia was moving, but one, the footwork in his movement wasn't all that great. It wasn't. And two, he wasn't able to throw anything while he was moving. He wasn't flicking out that jab to keep Duarte honest and keep him from just being able to stalk without anything coming his way. Yes, Oscar Duarte couldn't cut off the ring. That still didn't change the fact that against somebody that can, that's not going to work. To make a long story short, this fight really didn't show me what I needed to see from Ryan Garcia as he's trying to make his comeback to a title and come back from the loss that he had to Gervonta Davis. It just doesn't. Again, maybe it takes some time. Maybe it takes more training with Derrick James. Maybe it's going to take a couple fights. Fine. I better see Ryan Garcia be active and be willing to get in the ring more. I need at least 4 times next year in rapid succession. Because right now, Ryan Garcia is going to hit a plateau. We still see a Ryan Garcia that is incredibly raw. And though I saw some sparks of improvement, those improvements weren't where they needed to be in terms of consistency in how he used his tools, as well as overall improvement in all facets of his game. Quote the great Kobe Bryant in his commercial with Nike at one point in time. Are you a different animal but the same beast? To a degree, you do. And that's the bad thing. Let me rephrase that. You look like a different animal, but you do look like the same beast. And that's bad. Because the same beast, like I said before, had a ceiling. And unless you're a different beast, you're going to keep hitting that ceiling every time. You're going to. And right now, you didn't show me that you have evolved beyond where you need to evolve to. Hopefully, we see Ryan Garcia in the future to rectify these wrongs and to show more impressive performances. Hopefully we see that. But at this point in time, it's not the case.